Aloha, aloha kako. Welcome to Hoʻihoʻi ʻāina Military Land Back. I'm Tina Grandinetti. I am a PhD student, actually at RMIT University. My ancestral lands are in Okinawa, but I'm from Mililani, and I'm currently Zooming from my home in Kapahulu, and I will be co-facilitating or co-talking story with Kajihiro. First of all, we want to say thank you to the La Hoʻihoʻi Ea organizers. I think I don't know how long ago, maybe 5 years ago even, I didn't know what La Hoʻihoʻi Ea was, and now it's like my favorite part of the summer, best part of summertime. And we're so grateful that they invited us to put on a panel. Kyle and I were part of the Cancel RIMPAC Coalition. We organized a campaign to cancel the Rim of the Pacific exercises last year during the height of the first lockdowns. And obviously a modified version of the games went on, but we were really empowered and inspired by the amount of dialogue that the coalition was able to stir up. And we wanted to see that momentum carried forward to the broader fight against US imperialism and for demilitarized futures for Hawaii and for the Pacific. So we're now working under a new name, Koa Futures, which we kind of think encompasses that idea. And our focus right now is trying to mobilize people around the issue of these military leases on state lands, which are expiring in 2029. So the occupying US military currently leases lands from the state of Hawaii at Pōhakuloa, Mākua, Kahuku, and Poamoho. And they paid a nominal fee of $1 for 65 years for each of those leases, which is criminal, as we all know. And the leases expire in 2029, but the Army has already begun its training lands retention program. In Pōhakuloa, they've already begun their EIS, but here on Oahu, just this past week, they published their notice of intent, which initiates their EIS scoping process. And that means we have only until September 1st to comment on the issues and the concerns that we want them to address in their environmental impact statement. Kyle's gonna kind of go over some of the details of the leases and the EIS process, but we're also really happy and honored to be able to bring you a panel of amazing kupuna aloha ʻāina. I'm a little bit intimidated. They're gonna share their ike with us. We have Aunty Maxine Kahaulelio and Uncle Ching. They're my favorite partners in crime. They're gonna be talking about Pōhakuloa, and they actually sued the state for its failure to hold the military accountable to the terms of its lease, and essentially desecrating and degrading ʻāina at Pōhakuloa, and they won. Then we have Uncle Tom Lenchanko, who will be sharing about Poamoho, which is in Wahiawā. I don't know if too many people are familiar with that name, that place. But Uncle Tom is a kiaʻi of Kukani Local, a board member of the Wahiawā Hawaiian Civic Club, and a real leader in the Wahiawā community. Uncle Sparky Rodriguez is part of Mālama Mākua, and he can share about the current lease, but also about that very important struggle to stop live fire training in Mākua that we're all really indebted to. And then Aunty Lynell DaMate is a kiaʻi from Kahuku who stood against the windmills and has been organizing against the proposed missile defense radar in Kahuku with a group called the Koʻolau Wailua Alliance. So first we're gonna start off with Kyle Kajihiro, and he's gonna give us a really brief history of the leases, some background, and we'll do like a quick overview of the EIS scoping process. And I just wanna highlight that we're hoping to do other workshops and like comment writing workshops where we can dig more deeply into what the EIS says and how we can engage that process. But for this panel, we really just wanted to root ourselves in these places and why they're important to us, and what they mean to us here in Hawaii, on their own terms, not through the eyes of the Army. We're gonna have to speak on the Army's terms throughout their EIS scoping process. So this is a space where we get to really honor these ʻāina for what they mean beyond how the military sees them. Take it away, Kyle.
Thank you, Tina. Thank you, everyone, for coming and for all the panelists. So I'm Kajihiro. I am with Hawaii Peace and Justice and Core Futures, and I also teach some at the University of Hawaii in geography and ethnic studies. And I've been involved in some of these issues around military impacts on the land for a number of years. Let me share my screen to talk about, give you a brief overview of these leases. So this is from Army document from several years ago, where they were introducing to the state Department of Land and Natural Resources their plans for how they were going to proceed with renewing these leases. But it gives you an idea of what we're talking about. So in the top portion, you see the leases on Oahu, and you have Kahuku Poamoho. They're paying $1 for 65 years for 4,390 acres. Then you have two, each of them, they're paying $1 for 65 years. And then you have Mākua, and there's a number of individual separate parcels that are all under one lease. And again, that's about, what is that, maybe 1,400 acres or something, another 65-year lease for $1. And then the bottom portion are the leases on Hawaii Island at Pōhakuloa. And you see there's 3 parcels, but they're all under one lease. And that environmental impact statement process began earlier this year with the scoping process. So the Army and its consultants are now drafting the environmental impact statement for Pōhakuloa. So we'll be watching for that to come out in the future. But right now, the announcement just came out on Friday that the Army will begin an environmental impact statement process for the Oahu sites, so the ones at the top of this chart. So these are the sites that are affected. You can see the Kahuku site are the 2 yellow parcels in that Kahuku training area. And then down below that, the Poamoho site is to the east of Wahiawā and Whitmore Village area. And we'll zoom in to see more details about that. And then you see Mākua there on the west side. The yellow portion is what's at stake with the state leases. So here, Kahuku, you can see these 2 parcels. The motocross track, I understand, also falls within some of this leased land. So that's something that may be affected by this. And it's also next door to the site where the Missile Defense Agency was proposing to put the radar site. So that's something to consider. Here in Poamoho, you can see where the lower corner is right at the end of the road in Wahiawā when you're heading up Mauka towards the Ko'olau. And it also cuts right across the ridge to the other valley, and Whitmore Village is there to the west. And so that it's a large parcel. It's over 4,000 acres and goes right up to the ridge line and the trail that goes into Kahana and Waikane. And here in Mākua, you can see the yellow portions that cut across mainly towards the ocean side, of the valley. But you also notice there's some green parcels in the middle, and those were lands that were Kuleana lands that were condemned by the military when they took over the valley in 1941, 1942, in that period. So those are also lands that were taken. The rest of the green is considered, the military considers it to be owned in fee by the federal government, but they're actually the stolen crown and government lands of the Hawaiian Kingdom. And then on Pōhakuloa, you can see the entire Pōhakuloa area, training area. And then the yellow portion, of course, is what's the lands that are leased by the Army for $1, right? So it's mainly the areas near the highway. All of this, the majority of this, especially the part at the bottom where the heaviest impact is, are crown and government lands, ceded lands of the Hawaiian Kingdom. So it really is all stolen lands that should be coming back. And that's why we themed our campaign Military Land Back, Hoʻihoʻi ʻāina. So, well, just before I turn it over to Tina, I just want to mention that, this is these are sites in the context of 143 military sites in Hawaii, right? This is according to the base structure report that they submit every year. And, 220 something thousand acres of land throughout the Hawaiian Islands, right? Many of them are contaminated, nearly 1,000 contamination sites. So these are all the stakes of what's happening with these lands. And rarely do we have an opportunity to actually get land returned. So now we have a window of time where some, very important lands could come back, like Kahaulelio did back in, the 90s and 2000s. And so here's an opportunity for us to heal the land and also to heal our communities in the process of restoring these lands. So I'll turn it over to Tina to explain some of these alternatives that are laid out in the EIS.
So the notice of intent for the EIS goes over 3 alternatives for each lease, and then a no action alternative. No action alternative means that they don't take any action on renewing or renegotiating the lease. They let the lease expire, and so all of that land is returned. But the way that it's framed in the EIS scope, the notice of intent, is as a baseline. So from what you can read in that document, it's not actually being considered as an alternative. It's being held as a baseline to hold each of the other alternatives against. So alternative 1 is full retention of all the lands in each area. Alternative 2 is modified retention, which means that in Kahuku, they would return 1 of 2 parcels. In Poamoho, they would return 1 of 2. In Mākua, they would return 1 of 4. And then the third alternative is minimum retention. And they didn't put a minimum retention alternative together for Kahuku or Poamoho, but they did for Mākua, and that would be to retain 1 tract and let the other 3 return. Another important thing to know about the Poamoho is that they propose to return, in alternative 2, they propose to return the NAR track, which is an area that would be eligible for the highest level of environmental protection in Hawaii, but only if the Army returns that land. So that's kind of what's at stake there. And I guess with this document, I think the main thing I want to highlight is that these alternatives are put forward by the entity that is interested in holding those lands. So it's kind of just a contradiction of engaging with this EIS process, that the very institution that is putting together the EIS their preferred alternative is full retention. Well, I guess they haven't officially stated that, but the document says that in order to maintain the status quo, alternative 1 would be the route. So we know that we're engaging in an unfair process, and we need to start really figuring out how to strategically do that in ways that empower the community and shift the terms of this discussion so that we really have a voice. Kyle, next slide.
Okay, so one thing I forgot to mention earlier is that, let me back up a bit. All of these lands were first leased, in 1964, right, for 65 years. And so this was at a time when, after statehood, there was pressure on the federal government to return some of its excess lands. But the military was reluctant to return lands to the state. So what they did is they returned it in name and title, but retained those lands through these leases, which are really pretty onerous terms. Yeah. And so the alternative was for them to condemn these lands, right? Which would mean just using the federal power to take it over. So here's another portion of that memo that the Army's shared with the state, where they laid out what the process might be for renewing these leases. And you see the circled text there talks about proceeding with condemnation or acquisition. So I think, you know, we need to really be cognizant that this is still something that they're threatening to do, is to use federal power to just take the lands. And so it'll be a second, you know, land theft using federal power to take Hawaiian Kingdom lands. And this is something we really want to prevent. And so this is partly why we think it's so important. And they haven't renounced this. We've asked the military if they would take this off the table, and they have not. So this is definitely something that's lingering. And here are the announcements. Oh, Tina, were you going to cover this part?
Oh, doesn't matter.
Or
go ahead.
no? You want? Okay. So what's there? The Army is preparing to have public meetings on the scoping process. So basically, the way the environmental impact statement process works, the first step is called scoping. This is what began on Friday. They're taking any comments about what types of impacts should the environmental impact statement study and include in their analysis, right? So this is a time where we get to say to the Army, these are the things that you need to consider: traffic, noise, cultural significance, environmental resources that might be damaged, any number of issues, including, you know, I think the question of land title, the question of the dispossession and its impacts on Hawaiian communities and so forth. And so you can submit comments in a number of different formats, online, through email, but they're also hosting 2 public meetings, at least for the time being. If COVID, you know, changes things, that might be canceled. But August 10th and 11th, public meetings from 6 to 9 p.m. at the Lelehua Golf Course, right? And they're using certain kinds of social distancing to due to COVID. So we encourage folks to come and share and, you know, express themselves to the military and make sure that your concerns are included. Right now, the deadline is September 1st to submit comments. And as Tina mentioned, we'd like to organize some online writing workshops, how to craft your comments and submit them. We'll be announcing those later.
Another thing I just want to quickly add is that the public meetings on August 10th and 11th, they're only going to be held in Wahiawā, right? It's on the Army's home turf at Lelehua Golf Course. And that means that folks from Waianae are going to have to drive, folks from Kahuku are going to have to drive. But I think if you're not happy with that, if you're from those communities and you want them to come to you, it's not too late to call and demand that. You know, we don't know if they're going to listen, but it's worth a shot.
Okay, that's our last slide, right? All right.
And so maybe now we can jump into our beautiful panel. Like I said, we want to focus on honoring these lands and finding a way to connect with them, even though we haven't really had access to them for 65 years. So we want to start with a question to all of the panelists of just why this ʻāina, the one that's closest to you, the one that means that you have this connection with, why is this ʻāina important? Culturally, environmentally, emotionally, spiritually, personally, however you want to take that question, we would be delighted to hear.
Who's first?
I'll go first. Makua. Growing up, my grandmother lived on Upena Street, which is in Makaha. And Army would be training and we'd be sleeping at night. And all of a sudden something would go off, the house would shake, windows would rattle, and we're up wide awake from a dead sleep because of the training. And the military has really taken over a lot of the the places on the coast. They may have only specific locations, but they really consume everything in between. Makua meaning parent. I also found it really offensive that the training was blowing up our ancestors, blowing up our parents. And that's, for me, it wasn't the way to take care of our family. And out of Wahiawā Hawaiian Civic Club, one of the things that they posted was from Sam Ka'ai. And it was where they defined ʻāina as the old word for family. And using that in Makua, all of a sudden the endangered species, the cultural sites, the water, the plants, the animals, the air, the dirt, the wind, that's family. How are we treating family? So the Army doesn't understand that. And what we found was that the Army has a culture that they're willing to protect. It's the Army culture. It's not Hawaiian culture. It's not anybody else's culture, but Army culture. So their job is to blow things up, shoot things up, train to kill. And then when you're done with your battle, that you go back into society. So for me, as a Vietnam vet, the problem I had was, how do I separate loyalty? How do I separate patriotism and make it so that I'm not in conflict? So it resolved that Makua helped me get to the point of, I'm not anti-American, I'm not anti-military, I am pro-Hawaiian and pro-ʻāina. So those two things don't fit in a way that any compromise could be reached other than no training, return to the land. And one of the things we've got to think about is, what do we do if we get it back? When we get it back, how will we rejuvenate land that has been bombed for 100 years? Because Makua started in the late 20s. And when I asked the people that has the lease, I asked, well, did you guys pay $1? They said, oh no, it's just a standard procedure. We put a number in there. So maybe part of contract law is that we never received $1. You know, out of that, OHA should have got 20 cents. I don't think they paid anything. So part of the manipulation is that the state is in compromise because of the money. And when the military says we want to do that, all of the legislators, or not all, but most of them will say yes. They, you know, it's how high and how far, what way do you want me to jump? And they make the community the victim. And with Makua, there's a lot of trauma that goes along with all the training, all of the contamination, military toxics that's there, and how the military has eliminated different agencies that would normally protect the endangered species, the environment. EPA was the one that helped us get them to stop using the open burn, open detonation site on Makua. But they're sort of quiet. They're not doing anything anymore. Fish and Wildlife. In Puerto Rico, they turned over a live fire training area to Fish and Wildlife to turn into a preserve. So when I was there, my wife and I, there was a 250-pound bomb sticking out of the ground just where you pass to go to the preserve. Not cleaned up, and there's a sign in front of it that says, do not enter, an unexploded ordnance. So we found that Makua has been training and for so long. And Kyle showed the images of the lands in front of Makua that the Army claims as fee, the Kuleana land properties. Those are only a small amount that they condemned. There's Kuleana that stretches from one end of Makua to the other end, and they're surveying it right now, putting in boundary markers, and they're claiming all of this land as theirs in fee. So some of the kupuna was forced off at gunpoint. Their houses and the church there, they painted crosses on them so that when they did the aerial bombardment, they wouldn't blow up the houses in the church. When the pilots got back, they said, oh, I thought you marked them because they were the targets. So they blew all those things up. The graveyard has bullet holes in the headstones. All of the cultural sites throughout Makua. Makai side has bullet holes as they would train from the ocean amphibious landing up Mauka. The place has been burnt so many times. Endangered species. Our Hawaiians without a voice are the ones that have been suffering, as well as the families that have been forced out. And now, for years, we've been forced from getting in there. They put up a sign, Hawaiians would respect that as being, the kapu, stay out, it's a sacred place. But they've used it in the past to keep us away from cultural sites. So our benefit is that since we won the lawsuit against the military, we were able to incorporate protection of cultural sites, habitat, endangered species that went well beyond the EIS process or anything that we could have gotten out of just negotiating with the Army, because they would always say, no, we need everything. You guys cannot be here. It's too dangerous. So for the last 17 years, we've been going into the valley. We have access twice a month. And what I would like to say is that maybe we need to tour all of the sites that they're looking at leasing back or extending, so they can explain to us, this is what it is, this is why we need it. And they did that in Makua, and that was very favorable for us because they put a dog and pony show on, and the whole community could go in and see and listen to their story. From there, we were able to glean information that we could use. So with that, thank you.
Thank you. That's a really good idea. I also work for Representative Amy Pruso, who's the rep for Wahiawā, and we actually were able to put together an access to the Poamoho site. Uncle Tom came to. So for the Kahuku community, that's definitely something you can push for, and super important because how are you? I mean, people haven't gotten to see, connect, step on like that ʻāina for so long. So it's really important. Thank you. Who's next? Oh, you're muted, Lynell.
Like Sparky, growing up in Kahuku, that's all we would hear too. Besides all the heavy equipment, all the trucks, all the military movement from when I was real little. And it's true, they didn't clean up their mess. My brother got into a little bit of mischief. He ended up catching fire. His whole body was burning as he ran to the little hospital in Kahuku. But and over the years, it's just gotten larger and larger, and it is important because it's the connection to its people, the significance of all the cultural sites, all the traditional ways of life, like where I live now and the Kaunala Ahupua'a. Across Cam Highway is Waile'e, the Waile'e area, and that used to be an old Hawaiian fishing village. And it's really unfortunate the powers that be, and yes, it always boils down to the dollars, the powers that be had mishandled and mismanaged all of this area to where the military here at the KTA, the Kahuku training area, when they started acquiring all this land, they had about 1,170 acres in the mid-1950s. Now they have over 4,500 acres in the northern area. So, and yes, we still, just last night, I could hear the gunfire, and you're right about the motocross too, Kyle. It is impacting because some of that land, the military claims some of that land. In fact, some riders had told me that there's a gate now. You can't go way up into the mountains. You can't go and do all that. I mean, they started the EIS process for the proposed radar installment up there. And like Sparky was saying, we did ask our Senator Gil Revere to take a look into visiting the site. You know, when we had the meeting with the military defense at the North Shore, not North Shore, but the Ko'oloa, the Ko'olau Neighborhood Board, you know, they answered questions that we had, but things change. Things change over time. They will start the process with 160 acres of land, but they claim, oh, they're going to use only 40 acres. So what are they going to do with the other 120? I'm sure there's some kind of an agenda for them. But this place, to its people, is very unique. You know, we have the mountains in back of us and the oceans right across. And the community as a whole would like to keep it the way it is and not any more development. We have more than our share of tourists out here. And as far as with the military, they're like, to me, they're like the biggest bully. They just go ahead and do what they want. They go through the process, mind you, because it's law, right? They go through the process, but they already have their agenda made up. So it's really interesting, these promises, these broken promises now. All of these things they say and do, there's no responsibility. They don't really care about the people or the land because, again, it's all driven by funds. So in this area, growing up, I've lived out here, you know, all my life. And the direction that it's heading, things just get worse. And it's a wonderful thing. You have this group of panelists to show that, you know, we are concerned. We do care. We do care what happens on our land and what will happen. So anyway, yes, it is special. It is unique. And not only to those that can trace their lineage back to ancient Hawaii, but to those who's been here, you know, many years and who's decided to make Hawaii their home. And they too take up issues with the military having so much when the people have so little. Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much, Lynell. Tom, could you share about what you know and about the Poamoho and its significance?
Aloha, everybody. Tom Lenchanko. I live in Whitmore, longtime resident of Wahiawā. The battle with the Army and the Navy, because you get the Star Wars on the Ko'olau and the Army, high impact at Schofield. So for the last 20 years, we got involved with the Striker Brigade when they tried to do all of that, which went nowhere. So that was just a waste of time and money. Although we did pursue, and they're still trying to locate funds to do a traditional cultural property analysis for all federal lands that are subject to training. This is an important facet that I think everybody needs to understand, because this is where you want to actually give the context of your understanding since time immemorial, time eternal, about who we are as Hawaiians. Yeah, the process that they do is all one-sided. The state of Hawaii is, you know, them domestic subdivision, so it is to no benefit. And then you get the state preservation division and the DRNR that's supposed to be something of a signatory to all their training efforts. And when you look at it, it's just them dealing with themselves, and the Hawaiian does not participate. We are non-concurring. We have always been non-concurring to whatever documents they put out, because we're not participating with them, because it is a usurpation of our government since 1893. So with that in mind, that's the political nature of it. But for me personally, the term that we were always told and understood from ancient time is ka'anani'ao, the beauty of experiencing time according to our ancestors. And we are a ka'anani'ao. It's just a matter of when we're going to decide to express our beauty within the time range that we have. We cannot emulate our kupuna because that was their beauty and time. And whatever they did was to give us some pathway, into the future. And that's what it's all about. Ka'anani'ao, experiencing the beauty of time according to our ancestors. The other part that we should try to maintain is to speak kingdom law, because that's what protects us. And we're not going to talk about American law because we cannot defend ourselves there. This is going to take you into the court and take all your money, whatever money you may have, or whatever resources. So we stay away from that and try to maintain that, kanawai, the absolute edit, the rule of law. That's what we have to stay to. We have to maintain this understanding. We are an independent state of neutrality. We still have treaties with other nations that the United States of America claim that no longer exists. And we all know that a treaty cannot be dissolved unless both parties sign off on it. And I don't think there's any documentation anywhere in our history that all the treaty nations and the treaty laws that are in existence have been dissolved by signature. I don't think there's any. And I believe the last standing treaty with Zachary Taylor in 1849-1850, the Treaty of Friendship, Commerce, Navigation, and Extradition, still stands until today. If we recall the actions of the Marines landing, that's an act of war. It was stated by President Cleveland back then. That state of war is still in effect because there was no treaty of peace to resolve that issue. There's only two places, right? War and peace. So if there's no treaty of peace, then we're still in an act of war. So it's a matter of which way and what game we're going to be playing. Are we in the international law, which protects us as Hawaiians, or are we in a domestic subdivision state of Hawaii, United States of America? We have to make one decision, and we have to use tactics that benefit us as Hawaiian and us as international law. I know it's a difficult thing, but the presence of our compiled laws, penal codes, they're all intact. Our state constitution is the 1852 Constitution of the Kingdom of Hawaii. That was the last codified constitution. It stands until today. So if you look at them both ways, the state cannot change anything. They have to comply with the laws of occupation. So with that in mind, they're following our kingdom laws. So we need, as people of our nation of neutrality, to apply the laws of our nation and make them understand. They're not going to listen, of course. We all know that. We've been in this for years already, but it's never to give up. It is important. We control what we say, and it's always about what we say that they need to follow. You need to make that, and you need to assert it. It is important. Following that notice on Friday, I submitted a document to Colonel Misigoi, the garrison commander, to allow Howard Killian to once again, take us on another adventure to the Kahuku properties, the Mākua properties. And if they can pay our airfare and flights to Pōhakuloa, I'd like to get out there too, because that's the issue. You got to get on the ʻāina in order to understand where our family's at right now. It is important, so why is the ʻāina important? Is because it is us. It is our ancestors that are buried in the ground out there. Our land responsibility is the Puhonua, Kukani Loko, the Wahi Kapu. It's 36,000 acres. It's a kalana of Lihui, Wahiawā, Halemano, situated on the Central Plain. This has been designated, as a Puhonua, period. A Wahi Kapu. It's not a Wahi Pana, it's a Wahi Kapu. So there's a different reflection here as far as our understanding and our protections here. Yeah, so we're talking about Poamoho, but we're actually talking about the entire archipelago. This is our ʻāina, yeah. We're just subject because the Army, the Navy, the Pacific Command, Indo-Pacific Command, the Department of Defense want to play this game against us. Yeah, so we need to take it to a higher level where they cannot respond, because it's beyond the scope of authority to answer whether they have superior title to the land. You know, if they don't have title, then we have no challenge. Yeah, they can say they lease it, then we just revoke the lease. That's how simple this is. We have the authority as Hawaiian to revoke any lease that they have. It's a permission to use the land, revocable at any time. Just throw it on them, you know, and then make that statement. You know, we have the statement posted on our land, you know, so that it reflects all of Oahu, including the submerged lands, 26 nautical miles into the international waters. Yeah, they stole all the resources by infringing upon that international marker and making it 3-mile limit. And we lost a lot of things over the years, but you know, it is what it is. And our whole goal here is our national treasure, our children. So we need to clear the path for them to travel on, because they're going to take our place here. So we need to get all these spines and thorns out of the way. So when they still turn for Kanani'ao, it becomes a responsibility that they can share with the future. Mahalo, everybody. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Maxine. Kahuku.
Drunken Paul. To bring everybody up to date, in 2014, Aunty Mac and I, with the help of Native Hawaiian Legal Corporation, sued the state on the lease for not having the Army comply with all the conditions and stuff relative to the lease at Pōhakuloa. And we happened to win at the circuit court level, which was in Honolulu. And one would think that everything was fine and dandy, except that the state decided to appeal. So they forced us into the Supreme Court of the state of Hawaii. And Aunty Mac and I, with the help of our attorneys at that time, David Kimo Franco, who is right now active in the Red Hill Navy fuel in the ground controversy, and Summer Silva. And so we ended up in the Supreme Court, and about a year and a half ago, the Supreme Court decided that we were correct and the state was wrong. And bottom line, the state is supposed to do regular inspections of the land to make sure that the Army is in compliance of the lease. However, the first, and Aunty Mac and I, at least we have two positions for looking over the state's shoulder when they do the inspection. But the first inspection, the first official inspection hasn't taken place now. And we're getting into the 2-year period. So we don't know what the Army is planning or what the state is planning. Hopefully there will be this inspection coming up very soon. And we will be looking over the state's shoulder to make sure that compliance is the order of the day. One of the things that, or some of the things that we found out relative to our lawsuit and our Supreme Court opinion, And most of the lands, I believe, maybe all, are part of the so-called ceded lands, which are really stolen lands that were transferred to the state of Hawaii, the fake state of Hawaii, in 1959 as a part of the Admission Act. Anyway, but the state of Hawaii is supposed to be a trustee for the lands, and the beneficiary of these trusts are Native Hawaiians and the general public. Well, anyway, some of the interesting things that came out of our case is that the Hawaii Supreme Court decided that the public trust, which these lands are part of, is like a regular trust. There's a trustee, there are beneficiaries, and interestingly, the beneficiaries must have benefits. So one of the big questions is, where are our benefits? And so all these leases that have taken place and with the Army or the military, the United States military, whatever, actually being benefited by these lands, the beneficiaries of these lands, who are us, in one form or another, Native Hawaiians, non-Native Hawaiians. Of course, Native Hawaiians, by their definition, are those who have 50% Hawaiian or more. And of course, on the other hand, the less than 50% Hawaiians become part of the general public. And so, bottom line, the beneficiaries of these lands who should have benefits are not getting the benefits. And one would think that these leases are illegal and should not happen. And to top it off, it goes even further than that, because the trustee, which I believe is the state, and in actually the way it works, it's the Department of Land and Natural Resources. That's the state agent. And in place of the state being trustee, supposed to take care of these lands. One of the important things about this setup is that the trustee of the trust has fiduciary responsibilities and duties to protect the resources of the trust for the beneficiaries. And it seems funny that the state, if they are indeed protecting the natural resources of the trust, is allowing the military to destroy our lands, especially at Pōhakuloa, for instance, where they're using live ammo. So it's sort of a funny kind of setup where the state is able to lease these lands for the Army to run loose with their explosives and all that, when it has the responsibility of protecting those natural resources for the beneficiaries, and the beneficiaries have no benefits. So this is what I think is part of the big problem, and probably could be part of the solution. And so I believe there are lots of things to think about in this sort of simple equation. But let me also suggest that, and I don't believe it has been used yet, and I believe it's available, but I believe that we can demand, as part of the mechanism in these lease renewals or extensions or whatever you want to call it, to ask for contested case hearings. I don't know that DLNR has even contemplated it, but the Hawaii Supreme Court in our decision mentioned that we did not ask for a contested case hearing, but it also didn't say that there is no remedy of a contested case hearing. So I believe it's open country, that this is a part of the process that I believe that is part of trust law and state law, and that is something that we should use. Well, anyway, I just thought I'd hit off on some of the more important things that I have noticed in all of this. And we'll let Aunty Mac fill it in.
Oh, jeez.
Because there's so many other issues involved.
Oh, jeez. Okay. All right. You guys asked for 3 questions from us. It's, what is the ʻāina important? Why is the ʻāina important? How did the military impact the ʻāina and the broader community? What is our vision for the future of the ʻāina, for our ʻāina? I guess we all here on the panel knows that we were born and raised here. And my mother's afterbirths are still here. It's in the ʻāina. My ancestors are in Ka'anapali, in Maui. They're all here yet. It's still here. It seems like that the impact is almost like the EIS. You know, we talk about EIS. What is EIS? You guys go into that meaning of EIS. Environmental impact. How much impact did the military do upon our land? You cannot count, because it started before World War I. My brothers are buried in the ʻāina. They're buried here in Punchbowl, along with 50,000 of our local people, our local brothers and sisters are buried in this land. They didn't move them. They brought them home. Like Sparky, he was a veteran from Vietnam. He's back home the way he belonged. Our local kids died in Vietnam, died in Korea. They're back home. Why the hell are we strangers in our own land? Why they want to condemn our land? They kill our people first. They send them to war. They kill them. But they said, oh, we're going to send back your brother. Where? Back home to Hawaii. Does it make sense that they're going to condemn our land that our brothers fought for, our brothers and sisters fought for? My question is, why are we in war? Who are they protecting? Is it us or America? That's my question. Why does the Army need so much damn land to train to kill? That's my question. All this EIS is bullshit, and everyone on this panel knows it. We don't need an EIS. We need them to get out, go home, pack up your ukana and all your opala, and leave us alone. And stop putting that, well, if we're not here, you people don't have jobs. Another crucifying nail in the cross. Another nail in my hand on the cross. What are we doing, Kyle? We need to tell them, pack up your stuff, stop desecrating our land, stop taking our resources like Tom said, stop going out into our ʻāina, in our oceans, bombing the hell, leaving our fishes with radiation so high. Come on, why are we going in circles? Why? It's 2021. My brother died in 1968. And we're still fighting the freaking military. I have 2 brothers that died in Vietnam. 2. Why you think I'm here? Why you think I'm here, you guys? This damn crap gotta stop. They gotta get out of here. I mean, it's just endless. Endless the killing. Endless the training. You know, a couple of years ago when my brother went, this is the thing, my brother was going to Vietnam. He's in the 25th Division in Schofield. He was in Wahiawā training, 25th Division. And he was leaving to go to Da Nang. I have a column because they had a big write-up about the Andrade boys. 2 killed in Nam and all this. You know, my sister we kind of buckheads, you know. Well, you know, that's their job and everything. And you know what? I'm going to tell you folks, yeah. When my mother gave birth to 12 of us. Okay? 12, 6 boys, 6 girls. We had 12 in the family, cheaper by the dozen. And Auntie Mac is number 12, the donut in the box. Yeah. So my sister said to me, why are you so bitter? Our brother is going and they're going to protect us, that these other guys don't come here and bomb the shit out of us. They're going to save America, my 2 brothers now, and 50,000 other of our heart, like the Machado boy, all the other boys that died, okay? I told my sister this, now think about it, yeah? When my brother was born, my mother gave my brother a bottle with milk inside, goat's milk or whatever, carnation. She fed my brother by breasts. All of us was breast milk. I told my sister, my mom never put one gun in brother's hand. My brother drank milk from her breasts. I'm not sure if you guys catching on, but the government took my brother when he was young, vivacious, ready to go, beautiful body, beautiful smile, had a family, selective service. What was the thing? Selective service and what? The draft. Remember the draft? So my brother went in and they gave him one gun. I have a picture of my brother on the Jeep. He landed in Da Nang. 2 weeks later, he got killed by American Motor. I tell you why. Bob Jones, Kyle, was next to my brother when he died. Bob Jones, KGMB, working for KGMB, lived in Honolulu. His little girl went to our school. That's how I found out my brother was killed by motor, our American Motor. So how much more are we going to take? How much more do we say? We need to stop the war. We need to stop all of this crap. Unless you like your grandchildren Maki too, where the government said, hey, get out there and fight for the country. Serve the country. When they come back, they're either dope addicts, they're homeless, they don't have medical, and they'd be forgotten by our government. I mean, you can show me all the maps you want. You can show me the areas. You can show me the alternative. And it doesn't mean anything to me, Kyle. The part is we got to stop what they're doing. They're taking our land. You and I know, Tina, you and I know, and many of us here on the panel cannot afford a house in Hawaii anymore. It's $1 million. So where the hell do you think our kids going? Where are they going after they graduate from Kahuku? Lynette knows my kids. My kids gotta go California live. They cannot afford to live over here. 20 acres in Waikiki is already bought by the military. Waikiki Ranch. I can't even afford the damn nail in the fence up there. So who the hell you think all this coming down from? Come on, you guys. Our representatives who we voted for to go to Washington to save our island are the ones who are giving compensation to the military. They're taking away our land, our representatives. And it all started way back with Mr. Inouye and all his cronies. Yeah? What have we done? We haven't done anything. We tried. We went to court. We won. Who, you tell me, Kyle, Tina, Sparky, tell me, when we won in the Supreme Court, how come nothing is being done on stopping the bombing and desecration of our 100,000 acres in Pōhakuloa, Mākua, wherever? Why? Because Mr. Ed Case and all our representatives are up there holding the fort down. They have more power to stop the Supreme Court. Can you believe that? Yes, we can. Who and I supposed to go in Pōhakuloa, Kyle? We're supposed to go with DLNR. Ed Case and Susan Case are brother and sister. How that thing gonna work? That's a freaking conflict of interest. Conflict of interest. Come on. You get all the family inside there already. Yeah? Come on. What's going on, Kyle? What lands are they going to give us back? Opala land. Look what they did to Kamaka, Kyle. My friend Kamaka from Waikani. Look what they did to him. Throw him in jail because tax. Bullshit, he was a wrestler. The land's all bombed already. How much more? So your three question is, why is this ʻāina important? Because I was born here. Okay, I was born here. And my kids was born here. They wasn't born in the mainland, Oklahoma, or they was born here. My afterbirths are still here, someplace. My pico is underneath, my kid's pico is in the ocean and underneath one papaya tree, banana tree. How this impacted with us? We fighting against each other because of the military. Our own local girls and local boys are in the military. How division, how, you call up the 25th division. I call them a divide and conquer division that the Army is doing among. Okay, what is the broader community? Everybody's scared because they need their job, especially with COVID. What is the vision? My vision? I hope get a big earthquake and one lava flow. I hope to God, I pray to God every night, if Mother Nature can erupt Mauna Loa, cover Pōhakuloa, and that is my vision, that our Mother Nature either shake up this island or cover it, either one. I know she's not going to cover us because we live on Hawaiian homes, so I know that could be pretty. But that's my vision, Kyle. I'm sorry, I cannot speak big word because it's late in the night, and I usually have big words in the morning when my brain is okay. But again, what is my vision, Kyle? Get the hell out of here. All you military, take your freaking bombs and everything out of here. All your
Mahalo.
radiation, get out of here. I love you, Sparky. Kabaka get his video on. Get your stuff. Turn them on. I like to hear your voice. What a kidding. I love you, Sparky.
Auntie Mac, we didn't invite you for big words. We invite you for a kick in the butt.
If I was the kahuna, I would kahuna not the land now, okay? Not the land. The thing that stay on top the land. But
it's just so hard because I love how you always remind us, like, EIS statement. What does that mean? Like, also reminding us that they didn't just take this land. They're not just desecrating the land. They're using this land to kill other people, like literally. But it's so hard. Like, it's so hard to kind of navigate having to go through these certain avenues that they set up for us and these processes, and wishing that we could all just freaking rise up and mobilize everyone to kick them out, right? But it's so hard. Like, how do we balance that? Or
Tina, Auntie went on Kahuku. When I walked on that land, I keep telling you folks, every bullet, I cried. Every bullet that I walked through could have been food for our children, homes for our homeless, educational for top education. And you know what I seen on Kahuku? That big bomb, Sparky, that you seen. I seen one sticking out of the most beautiful, beautiful waterfall. I did. And on top get USA. I don't know what USA meant. I don't know. What is USA?
That's a good.
I'm sorry.
Great. Auntie, that's a great. Okay, that's a great example of that we can change the situation, right? You folks won Kahuku.
In 1996, Kyle, I know my 10 minutes are up, but in 1996, picture this now, you guys. The beach on Kahuku, okay, that was the beach where all the canoes came in 2004. We went back. But picture this now. On the island of Kahuku, on the shores of the beach, there was a colonel there. Because you know how we know? This brother was telling us. It was this colonel, 1 foot on the sand, 1 foot in the ocean. He had one cigar. Okay? He had one cigar. He looked at the land, he looked at the ocean, and brother said he took the cigar and he threw him in the ʻāina. He threw it in the ʻāina, and he said, "Hey, you Hawaiians, here, take back your land." After we went bomb him. How that? I hope the guy died. You know, I hope he's not living no more. Pilau, son of a bitch and howley. He threw his cigar. How's that? And he said, "Hey, you Hawaiians, hey, your land back." And we bombed it. But I'll tell you something, they never condemned it. That was my prayer. They never condemned the land. It's still there for the children to go back and plant, restore.
Yeah. Yeah, and now it's a pico for the Hawaiian sovereignty, right? But I wanted to just see if Lynell or Tom or Sparky folks you want to share some?
Well, first of all, Maxine, in fact, all of you, I the last half hour, I've learned so much. But like you, Maxine, I'm the youngest of 11. Okay, so, and you mentioned Ed Case. Okay, the Ko'ola Wailua Alliance, we do have a virtual meeting with him tomorrow.
Whoa.
Okay, now listen to this. What you were saying about all these kinds of contradictions, I looked over my email and looked at his letterhead on top of his letter. Okay, it says here that he is Committee of Appropriations, Military Construction, Veteran Affairs, and related agencies. Okay, that's one. Now listen to the second one. He is Committee on Natural Resources. That's already a major contradiction. So he is on national parks, forests, and public lands, water, ocean, and wildlife, indigenous people of the United States. Wow. So isn't that like kind of interesting? I mean, so when push comes to shove and he needs to make a decision, what is it that pushes him one way or the other? How can you be sitting on two extreme committees? Because how are you going to make that right decision? You can't.
I wonder where his afterbirth is.
Oh, I had for my second child. You know what, Dr. Branch? Do you remember him?
Yeah, I do.
Yeah, his wife would ask if they could eat it.
Yeah, that's right.
Gross, yeah. Oh, look, we're on live over here. Sorry, but
no, but see, this is the kind of stuff that we need to talk about. Okay.
Yeah.
What is reality? What is the human reality of all of this that we're doing here? And our land's been taken away and condemned. The reality is that they don't have a cocoa. They don't have cocoa like we are. We have.
That's the thing. Yeah, it's these kinds of things that occur in our congressional delegates. All of this contradiction. And what drives them? It's power and greed. That's what makes them make their decisions. We know that it always comes down to that. I mean, I know it sounds a little cynical, but you know what? We're all at the age, with the exception of you, Tina, that we earn that right to be cynical because we've watched and we've observed so much. The people of Hawaii has been screwed over many, many times over. A friend of mine was also part of KWA. She says all these broken trusts. And you know what? That broken trust does not begin and end here in Hawaii. It is global. All the indigenous people have been messed with in one way or another. We're all in the same struggle. And the powers that be, our so-called government, they're the biggest hang-up in anyone moving forward. They play all these little games and they have all of these little tricks to stop people who has that pure heart and intention just to jam us up because they have an agenda. And that's what they want to push, is their agenda. Anyway, aside from that, my vision for the future is that the kuleana we share today, as we shared in the past, is for our descendants. Right, Tom? So, to follow our example in the continued efforts to overcome the many struggles and obstacles that interfere with the goal of getting back leased lands held by the military to its people. Lands that will support and foster sustainability that also includes housing, so our people will stay in Hawaii. Of course, agriculture, food production to reduce dependence on imported products and goods. And just as important, earth justice, environmental justice, thousands of acres to be left alone. So the land, the watersheds, and the fragile ecosystems can heal itself after all of the abuse and contamination the military has visited on this ʻāina. Having said all that, when we malama the ʻāina will malama all of its inhabitants, the people, the wildlife, all the wonderful food we get from the land. That is my vision. But, you know, the military is so accustomed to bullying its way around that they think no one's going to speak up. But now, you know, this is a great opportunity now.
It is. Thank you for that beautiful vision. And I think that that's the first step for us. They have their visioning process. We're doing ours now. Right?
Yeah.
If we don't have that vision in mind, we can't work towards it. And this should be the question driving any kind of planning process moving forward. Like put that in the EIS, right? We wanted to have some time for people to ask questions, but Sparky, Tom, you folks have any last thoughts about vision that you want to share? And then we want to leave a little time.
Well, yeah, if I can share a little bit, you know, I failed to mention that Earth Justice was our legal team that took us to federal court, took the Army to federal court. And that is what got us to the point where we have access twice a month. So David Henkin was the attorney, and he's done amazing work for us, with us, for the ʻāina and everything. And as we go through all of the stuff that we're learning, there's so much information out there that it is really mind-boggling. And sometimes I get overwhelmed that I sort of just go into spasms and freak out and not do, I gotta stop and take a breath, because there's just so much bullshit the military is doing. And, you know, you had mentioned about the military's impact. Every time you have troops come in, they bring their families. When their families come, now you got a wife and or a husband that needs a job. So they're competing for that. They get COLA for living expenses. We don't. Yeah. So every time they take or occupy a space, whether it's a job or housing, it forces us into competition that we're not able to compete in. We cannot afford the same things that they can. And it forces our families into social, economic, and financial straits that are impossible to get out of based on how our managers and supervisors and owners and CEO conduct their business. Their job is to keep the costs down. So that means their feet's on our head and shoulders so that we cannot survive. I call it the slow choke, just enough to keep you alive, but not enough to let you thrive. With the Army, one of the things I also noticed was that on all the maps, the things changed, the lines. So on the one Kyle showed, you know, Kuleana, and I'm wondering, okay, where's the Kuleana in Poamoho? Where's the Kuleana designations in Kahuku or Pōhakuloa or any of the other sites? And the other thing we never discussed was that, what about the other military? Only the Army got leases? I don't think so. I believe the Navy stole land, the Air Force, the Marines, and even in Waimanalo, they're not doing live fire, but they're doing simulated training. So you still have the trauma impact of explosions, concussion, the noise that affects our environment, the endangered species, our ability to have a peaceful life doesn't exist in all the communities that the military is present in. And if they're not killing us directly, they're killing us indirectly with all the military toxics. And we can expect that they will never clean up, because they have never cleaned up in any place except for Germany. When they left, the Germans forced them to clean up to their standards, not to the US standards, because in the leases, all they got to do is bury shit. They don't have to clean nothing up. All they got to do is get an appraisal, write a check, and leave. What is a valley that has been bombed for 100 years? What is that worth? And you had asked about, can we go ahead and restore it? Maybe not in my lifetime. But there was something Auntie Frenchie used to say, you guys are screwing me and you're not even telling me I love you. So that's what the Army has been doing to all of us for a very, very long time. So participating, sharing these things, I think I've learned a lot more by battling the Army than I would have if I didn't. So I want to thank you, all my warrior friends, cousins, aunties, uncles. Mahalo. The battle na kon yan, no? Thank you. Tom.
Again, aloha everybody, and you guys, Ike is well received because I feel the same way, you know. But I still think our sixth sense, the ability to reason, is what is important. Yeah, because with that alone, we can make the best choice. Remember, it's always about the best choice. Leave all the negative stuff behind because we've been there, we've done that. Yeah, now we got to find the key that open this door and take us right through. Kupuna always said, you know, we're looking through the eye of a needle. One of us get through, we all going the same time. You just got to hang on to the tail and we all going one time. So that's the approach here. You know, what is the lawful standing that give us that ability to reason and make one choice? They're going to take us down the right path because, again, the generations that follow us is why we're doing what we're doing. So they don't have to go through this pilikio, you know, and that's the basis. You know, our emotion is great because that's what gives us the ability to make that choice. So on behalf of our families of Kukani Local, I appreciate this time and I give my love to all of you because you are the wisdom that I follow, you know, till it's my turn to go sleep with the ancestors. Aloha.
Mahalo, Tom. Mahalo.
Mahalo, Tom. Tina, did I think Lynell had some kind of pictures or something she wanted to share?
Yes, we only have 7 minutes left. Lynell, did you want to share which part of the?
Well, the slides and that one about what the Ko'olau Wailua Alliance is about. You know, it is about a grassroots community members getting together to address particular issues. And we've kind of broadened that scope because we noticed that, like everywhere else on the ʻāina, issues keep popping up all over the place, and yet they're all the same. You know what I mean? There's always the 2 or 3 entities that we always end up bumping heads again, whether it's the military. Oh, okay. So
I want to also just, I'm just putting it up now, but I also want to kind of like transition us to questions from the audience too. So I'll just put this up here as you.
okay.
And maybe.
Do you want to read that real quick? Or is everybody?
Go ahead.
It's a grassroots network of residents and community groups across Oahu's north and windward shores that believes that our health and well-being are woven together in the same cloth, that problems affecting one community in the region threaten us all. And as you can see below, that is a list of people that do support our group. And you can move on, Tina, if you want, to the next slide. And there are, just to let you guys know, this is a cookie eye for the windmills. You probably recognize some people there. Okay, for the next one, Tina. Okay, so this is directly with the military. We organize because we are aware of the history of military testing and contamination in Hawaii and the Pacific without the consent, sometimes even without the knowledge of the people. And because we believe that similar challenges persist. Okay, next one. Okay.
Lynell, can can I maybe put this slide, these slides in the chat for people to access after, or can we direct them to the Facebook or somewhere where they can get in touch with you?
Yes.
Just so we have time for people to ask questions or comments.
No, that's perfectly fine, Tina. And it will be on the Ko'olau Wailua Alliance Facebook. And there are some photos in there that might be painful to look at, but it's like we're revisiting some of the events that had recently occurred in our history, right up to all that's going on at Red Hill. That's like major footprints of the military. Anyway, enjoy it, and we will also have a Gmail account, or if you guys want to ask questions, just get in touch with us. You know, we're not gonna just roll over and die. We're gonna keep fighting. Okay, go ahead, Tina. Sorry.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, guys.
Okay. It says we have a question from the Facebook live stream. Is that latest HB 499 bill extend those military leases another 100 years? Okay, so I think the question, I think the question is asking if HB 499, which passed in the last legislative session, applies to those military leases. And that's actually a big question that we've had, because the bill itself states that leases used for government uses are able to be extended under that bill. So it is kind of a big red flag, although like we've gotten, you know, Representative Tarnas has said that it wouldn't apply to these military leases. The EIS notice says that an extension is not legal under Hawaii law. They have to renegotiate a new lease. So for the time being, it doesn't seem like HB 499 will have an impact on the Oahu EIS process, but I would definitely say that we need to keep an eye on that.
There is a movement that's going to try to repeal that 499, because I talked to Tarnas on the phone and I told him I meet him on Judgment Day. Yeah, little Howley. You know, he's the one that introduced it, and Lorraine Inouye pushed it. So I want to tell you guys that this is 104 years of extension, and please don't get it wrong. It's not for the Cafe 100 in Hilo, as Mr. Tarnas put it. It's not. That's why they're doing so much on military grounds, because that's going to be included. So be aware, Mr. Iggy, our Iggy did not veto that bill, because you know why, gang? He has nothing to lose. Next year, he's out. Pow, he not can run for nothing, not even dog catcher. So they don't give a shit about us Hawaiians. Look what he did to pick the Supreme Court justice. He picked one out of Poamoho. 3 Hawaiians, never get them. Go on top that, you guys. Watch the Supreme Court. Wanara Haole. Bad stuff, Tina. Bad stuff.
So I think we're running out of time with our event here. And I want to thank all of you, Aunty Maxine,
Thank you.
Sparky, Tom, Lynell, Tina, everyone who attended on Zoom and on Facebook. This is a really important issue, and we have a window of opportunity to make a really important change. I think these stories you hear about how these military activities and the stolen lands have had impacts on people's lives, on our well-being, and will continue to have these negative impacts unless we change them. But at the same time, we saw examples that Lynell posted about the kia'i in Kahuku, the kia'i in Mauna Kea, the kia'i in Punananiho in Waimanalo. Punananiho, sorry. So and Makua also. So we have, you know, these little kipuka of resistance and of aloha ʻāina that are happening. And so this is an opportunity, I think, that we can bring them together, these energies coming together and really push for land back. Yeah, the Hoʻihoʻi ʻāina in the time of La Hoʻihoʻi ea. So we posted some links to the Koʻola Wailua Alliance on Facebook, Malama Makua. Do you folks, Maxine and Ku, do you folks have a website for anything about Pōhakuloa you want to share? And Tom, do you have anything about your organization? Would it be the Civic Club, or you could post it in the chat for everyone, and that would be, you know, folks could have that as a reference. And I'll put my email in there if anyone wants to get in touch. We will be putting out more information about the upcoming training on how to submit scoping comments. And then there'll be other rounds of public comments for the draft environmental impact statement and the final and so forth. So this will happen in some waves, and it's good for us to kind of maka'ala right now and get organized and get involved. So any last words, Tina?
Thank you so much to all of our panelists. I always love listening to you guys talk. I learned so much. And I also just want to ask everyone who attended this panel, who's watching, to please, if you can, come to the public meeting in Wahiawā at Lehua Golf Course on August 10th and 11th, because that is their home turf. They're gonna have their people there. It's gonna be kind of painful to watch, you know, like we need our people there to give a different voice. Yeah, and we need to support each other, because it might be a little.
It's not their ʻāina. It's not their home.
No, it's not, but it's their golf course.
No, it's not.
But they should have meetings in these other communities too, right?
It's not.
Yeah.
Never give them that little bit of that hope that they own it. No, they don't.
Okay.
No.
You're right. You're right. Okay, so we need to go and make our presence known and remind them that's not their space either.
You know, we cannot go down there. We stay up here, Tina. So we cannot go.
So you can go virtual.
No, us guys.
You folks, you go virtual. You can come in. So I want to also mahalo Makamai Sniffin for doing our tech and the logistics. Thank you, and La Hoʻihoʻi for helping sponsor this event. So thank you all for coming. Please pay attention to the issue and get involved and support. And we look forward to seeing you on the 10th and 11th. Mahalo.
Terrific. Mahalo, everyone. I learned a lot.
Mahalo, Lynette.